Namaste everyone. Welcome to Hindu Center of Atlanta's special series on Chaitra Navratra. Acharya Brahmdev has joined us from Mauritius. Acharya will help us to understand the real meaning of Ramnavmi by taking the examples from the life of Maryada Purushottam Bhagwan Sri Ramchandra ji. Acharya is referring a Balmiki Ramayana for his for this series. Over to Acharya ji.
Om Namaste. Let's bring our mind to focus. Sit down straight, close the eyes gently. Deep inhale and exhale. We are going to chant Om 3 times, the universal sound, and while doing the Om chanting, follow the vibrations, how they move through the body. And the same when doing Gayatri Mantra. Feel the sound waves and the vibrations coming back to us. Om Bhurbhuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Thiyo Yona Prachodayat. Join the palms together, rub them gently, cover the eyes and open the eyes below the palms and the energy to the facial muscles so that facial muscles also are relaxed and we can just better be focused. So we are looking into the Valmiki Ramayana, how Maharishi Valmiki starts the Ramayana. The character of rhyme is described by Naradji first, and then Maharishi Valmiki goes into the details. He refers to the various characteristics of Ram since childhood, the importance of laying the foundations for good children by Putreshti Yads, then goes into character building and the formation that the kids are given a holistic approach towards spiritual sciences, physical sciences, social sciences, political sciences, military sciences. It's a multitude of them. And also is there Ayurveda, because when Ram goes to exile, he has to survive in the forest. And we see they live in perfect harmony with nature throughout. And the Balkand also covers the wedding of Sri Ram, Lakshman, Bharat, and Shatrughna. Sri Ram and Lakshman marries 2 sisters, the daughters of Janak, and Bharat and Shatrughna gets married to the cousin sisters of Sitaji. And at that point in time, we see Maharishi, where we covered, and up to now, Maharishi Vishwamitra decides to bring Sri Ram to Mithila. And we see the way that they are received on their way by different people on their path. And the various places where they stay, it's all a life of both living the life, the worldly life, as well as the spiritual life side by side. Wherever they go, they live in harmony with nature, have their bath in the rivers, but then first and foremost, seek the blessings of the Guru and then ask permission from it's a way of expressing gratitude. Like ask permission from the river to use the waters for bath. And after bath, sit down by the riverside for meditation, which is a common practice, and prayers, etc. And for whomever they meet, whoever they help them, it's always the Atithya Seva. Like in the Vedic Hindu philosophy, the way of duly receiving guests with all honors. And we see there, it says in the 22nd Sarg of the Balkan, that is sub-chapter, where Pujam cha paramam kritva sopadhyaya sabhanyava prajasti kushalam prishtha vidwa vishwamitra satha bravis. Then the key of it is that when Sri Ram is about to enter Mithila, he stays at one place with one rishi there. Even Mithila the king had rishis as advisors. So learned scholars were there, and the learned scholars came to receive. It says, Upadhyay or Parivar Jano ke saath उनका स्वागत सरकार कर एवं कुशल पूछ विश्वामित्र से कहने लगी. So they received Vishwamitra, Ram and Lakshman with all the due honors as guests, because they came. And there we need to understand Atithi Yads and Atithi Seva is not for people that we've invited. It's for uninvited guests, especially elderly and learned persons. And for other who comes, we have a duty to receive them, serve them something to, especially water, which is the symbol of purity, peace, and prosperity in the Hindu philosophy. And then ask if they want to have some food and other things. So that is the real Atithi Seva, not those who were invited and we were planned for dinner, for lunch or dinners, etc. And there, the concept is clear. Then on the way, they meet Ahilya. And we see that there's a total contradiction from Valmiki Ramayana and the other versions. Valmiki Ramayana sets Ahilya, she had some problems, and then the husband left her, and then she decided to become a tapasvi, do penance, tapasya, and she had, as we say, some far-sightedness that she would be meeting somewhere Sri Ramchandraji. So that was, and in the other versions, we see Ahilya as a stone, turned into a stone. She was not turned into a stone. She became a tapasvi, and during all the, as we say, heat and cold, hunger and thirst, but then she was adamant on the spiritual path for spiritual upliftment. And she feels blessed when Sri Ramji comes to her. And even with us, as we say, the small amount of things that she had, because as a tapasvi in an ashram, she relied on nature for food. So she had collected some fruits and things like that, which she offers to Vishwamitra, Ram, and Lakshman. And it says, Tatha Shapva Savai Shakramahavyalpamapi Shamvan Vasavarša Sahasrani Tapayanti Yasamashayini. कठोर तप करती हुई और भूमि के ऊपर शयन करती हुई बहुत वर्षों से यहाँ निवास कर. These are the words of Valmiki in Sanskrit translated to Hindi. And that ashram was the ashram or Maharshi of Gautam. And we see the names of the rishis. So in Ramayana, in other texts, and that means there was not only one rishi with that name. There were multiple rishis of multiple generations of multiple times with the same name, just like us today. There are some names which are common, which people had 200 years back, 800 years back, and still going now. And people are still naming their sons and daughters with the same name. And then the next verse says, Dadasham cha mahabhagam tapasa dyotita prabham lokairapi samagamya Durnirikshya surasurai Raghavitu tatasya pado Jagrihatu murda. So when Vishwamitra and Ram and Lakshman reach there, they enter the ashram with Rishi Vishwamitra leading them. What they found, उन्होंने देखा कि अहल्या तप के तेज से देदीप्यमान हो रही है. So that's what we say, the aura, the spiritual aura, which people with their dedication to spirituality acquire. And we see that also in common men, in righteous people, virtuous people. Wherever they go, they need no introduction. As we say in the present day times, their vibration shines before they reach. Then comes the marriage to Sita, where the bow, there's the question of lifting the bow, tying the string to the bow, that is getting it ready to shoot. And we see there that things which couldn't be done by previous capable persons was, as we say, a child's play for Ram. That reveals the power of brahmacharya throughout their lives. And the marriage to Sita was not a Swayamvar. She was considered as Divya Kanya by the father Janak. And he had the resolution that the bow, the one who could arm the bow, that is, get it tight, ready to shoot, that is someone who is extremely capable in terms of physical and spiritual force. So it was a co-matching of gun, karma, subhav, character, aptitudes, and other things. And Ram could do it easily. And then Sita was asked if she was ready to get married to Ram. So her consent was essential in that. Then we see Raja Janak receiving Vishwamitra, Ram, and Lakshman, sending the messengers to Dashrath to get the consent of Dashrath, and Dashrath came to the wedding. So it's an environment where honor, due respect, and the approval of all is sought. But then first and foremost, the approval of the bride-to-be. It shows also the values flowing across generations, because as we say, people say we read the Kundali. And in the Ramayana, we see when they are reading the Kundali, what they are reading, they are describing 22 generations before. How these generations, from one generation to the other, they've been following the values, the human values of life. And now we see how the thing of Kundali has been distorted. It's not a question of reading the stars and everything. It was reading how the values transcended from one generation to the other. And that's where we get children like Sri Ram, Chandra, Lakshman, Sita, Urmila, and everything of the highest virtue. Then the Vivaha Sanskara is done in the tradition which is described in the Vedas. The consent of the bride, the consent of the groom, with the approval of all the parents, which is, as we say, Arsh Vivaha. And then we have the concept of Sat Pere in Vivano, which we use to listen. And there, Maharishi Valmiki, when he's describing the Viva, he describes teen fere, only free, around circumambulation, around the fire. He says, Idrishe vartamane tu turyo datush trininadite triragnite parikramya urho bharya mahijasa. And in the Vedic Hindu marriage, the real way of doing it, even at the time of the Ramayana, one circumambulation was done before lighting the fire. And then when the fire is lit, nearing the end of the marriage ceremony, it's only 3 circumambulation. So total is 4. But then there's the Saptapadi, which is 7. Unfortunately, we've distorted the Saptapadi to be Sat Fere. Then we see the concept of giving dan. Usually what happens nowadays, the contradiction of marriage nowadays is on superfluous spending. There, the spending was more giving to the groom and to the bride gifts is okay. But then it was given, they didn't lack anything from their background. But then gifts were shared between the 2 kings, the 2 relatives. And then most of the donations, the gift were given to propagate learning. Thousands of cows were given to the Brahman. And to the Brahman means to the educators who were running gurukuls, who were running educational institutions. And all these educational systems were free. So with the Go Seva, as we say, and with the Goshala, so they could get milk, they could get all the amenities, and the excess milk also was given to the community, and they got food in return, etc. That was a way of sustaining learning. And then comes the Ayodhya Kand, where the coronation of Sri Ram is planned. But that turns otherwise, and what that turns otherwise, that gives a twist to the Ramayana. And we see during the Ayodhya Kand, when Sri Ramji leaves the palace, he's given all the facilities by people whom he cross around, but he refuses all that. He says, what's the use of going into exile and living a life as a prince? He wants to live as an ascetic. And Sita and Lakshman voluntarily accompanies him and goes as per his guidance. They lead the life of an ascetic. And the last part where they meet Anasuya, who was also a tapaswini, a yogi. Anasuya blesses Sita with, as we say, Divya Vastra. And the Divya Vastra is only the simple clothes, but then which imbibes the thinking and the maxim which we know in modern days, simple living and high thinking. And that goes on for 13 years till Sita is kidnapped. What we learn through the Ayodhya Kand is one simple living and high thinking, respect for nature. Wherever they go, whomever they met, all the people there respected nature, didn't cause undue disturbance to nature. And that goes in terms of what we learn in the Shanti path. Antarik Shanti, Prithvi Shanti, Apa Shanti. So that was the environment of behaving in a peaceful way to the environment, and the environment was giving them peace. That's the way, the highest way of living. And that made their life for 13 years till Sita was not kidnapped. They lived a life of peace, tranquility, serenity. As from tomorrow, the next 4 sessions we'll be having, we'll be looking on various events in the Ramayana which inspires us to be better persons and to grow physically, mentally, morally, spiritually, as well as socially in our life. Thank you for your attention. Just for any queries, you may send it through Facebook Messenger on the Facebook page of Hindu Center of Atlanta, or by email hinducenterofatlanta@gmail.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Acharya-ji. Today you explained very well how to respect the nature and how to learn from the rishis and yogis, in how the Bhagwan Ramchandra-ji learned all these things and respected the nature. We will continue tomorrow with this series uh, about the Ramnavmi. Please do join us around 10 o'clock Eastern Time every day evening, next 4 session. See you then. Thank you.
Om